We're going to start getting into questions now. We've had more patrons than ever before in the history of the podcast. We have a record amount of questions that came in today.
Nice.
So obviously we can't go through all of them, but I just wanted to say that all of them were great. Some of them were like repetitive questions, so we can actually tackle, by answering one, we can answer multiple. And it goes without saying it's impossible to answer all of them, but there's been just a lot of sweet and nice messages in the last 24 hours, and including on this mailbag post and including our DMs. So just thank you. It means a lot to us, and also I just wanted to say that. And also, just, I guess, enjoy and welcome to this ever-growing Real Madrid family. A lot of you, this will be your first experience of listening to the mailbag, naturally. So it's pretty fun. You're about to get a taste of why it's such a famous mailbag, and you're not to put pressure on Lucas, but you're about to indulge in the greatness of Lucas Navarreta's answers, which makes this whole podcast famous. So the first question is from Patrick Odayafati. He says, "Hi, Kian and Lucas. I hope you're both doing well. I think my heart is still racing. Such a wild game. But let's talk about Camavinga. He's getting more and more confident every time he steps on the field. I like his role as an impact sub for right now, but I can tell he's going to be a special player. How long before he's in the Gala 11? My guess is one more season before he fully breaks in. And how did we get this kid for 35 million?
What a player, Patrick. I completely agree with you. I've only seen him, I think, twice as a Real Madrid player. Yeah, against PSG, and last night I didn't. He didn't play against Levante, I don't think, earlier in the season, which I went for that game too. And I've been astonished and just amazed at his talent, and also at his composure and his attitude, considering his age. It's just something wonderful to see. I don't know, it's just so rare seeing a 18-year-old, 19-year-old player coming on late in the game with a Bernabeu, desperate and also anxious at the same time. It was frantic. The atmosphere was frantic. The fans were frustrated, desperate to see the players doing something and showing some life. And he didn't shy away or hide away from the moment. And he seems to embrace these moments and these feelings from the fans, and demands the ball, starts doing some, not only his defensive work rate and physicality, obviously, which is something that is very easy to notice when he comes in for cross, but also his overall attitude and bravery to try certain things that weren't that easy to accomplish or just do in such a tense and nervous atmosphere, and it's just great to see him, this kid play. And to me, he's probably good enough to start in most games Real Madrid play this season. Especially considering the form Kroos is at the moment. I know Valverde is probably ahead of him in the rotation, ahead of Camavinga. But to be honest, even considering how great Valverde has looked when given the chance against both PSG and now against Chelsea, sorry. I even forgot the opponent. It's just amazing seeing Camavinga, and I believe that I've been more impressed by Camavinga just because of his versatility. I think he can do what Valverde is able to do in terms of physicality and defensive work rate, but he also has a bit of a better technical ability to break through passes and just be a bit of a bigger threat offensively, which is, by the way, why my main frustration with whenever he's deployed as a defensive midfielder. I think he definitely belongs in the central midfield. But anyway, yes, I think how long before he's in the Gala 11? We'll just have to wait until either Kroos or Modric definitely decline and are not able to play on a consistent basis against physical opponents. I think that it won't take him very long if he keeps performing at this level for whenever he's given the chance.
You mentioned the stage and the occasion, and to me, that's why I completely agree with that, because that's why, to me, this has been so impressive. It's one thing for him to do it in a game against Getafe, which, by the way, he was great in over the weekend.
Yeah.
But to do it not only in a big game against a big team, but also in a big game against a big team with the season on the line, on the brink of elimination, for him to be so important is a massive, massive important sign for me. And he's literally a kid. So if he's doing it now, I have no concern about him to show his balls moving forward. Like to me, he was really good off the bench last night. I mean, I think we talked about it a lot. You mentioned some of the stuff last night on the podcast. We mentioned so much of it. To me, there were 3 moments that I can remember off the top of my head without checking my notes, without looking at highlights or film or whatever. And those 3 were, one is when Carvajal gives it away in extra time, and he comes over and makes the foul and take the yellow card. It seemed like such a simple play, but how many times have we seen players not make that foul when the team needed them to? So that was very quick thinking, intelligent, and I was very thankful for him doing that. Second one was he presses, I forget who it was on Chelsea, but on the Rodrigo goal, when Alaba intercepts it.
Yeah.
That was a really important pressing sequence from
Kante, I think. Yeah, Kante, yeah.
Yeah, it must have been. And then obviously on the Benzema goal, it was his interception and read in the pass to Vinicius down the flank.
The pass was brilliant, man, and I think it's been overlooked because, you know, in most occasions in that kind of moment, I think the normal thing to do is just to give the ball to Vinicius instead of trying to go deep and set his run, you know, and that's what Camavinga did. He recognized that, you know, Vinicius had an opening there without wasting any single second, and just intercepted the ball and went straight to set Vinicius' run deep and obviously gave him the chance to cross it to Benzema and assist Benzema, and that pass was amazing. And I think, well, the pass itself is not technically difficult, I mean, but recognizing and acknowledging the moment that you have to set Vinicius' run instead of giving the ball to him and wait for him to create something. I think that was a great moment and a great read of the game from him.
Speaking of good midfielders, Andrew Maloney says, with his transcendent performances this year at the ripe age of 36, has Luka Modric cemented his status as the greatest midfielder to wear a Real Madrid shirt?
If you don't consider Di Stefano a midfielder, and I don't think you should, then definitely, yeah, for sure. I mean, he has a case to be considered the greatest midfielder in the history of football, in modern football at least. I mean, you obviously maybe consider Beckenbauer a midfielder. I'm talking about modern football starting from the 90s or so, which is kind of similar to what we play now. The 60s and the 70s were an entire different thing. So maybe, obviously, those guys deserve a lot of credit. We've talked about this debate and dilemma in the past, but again, in modern football, I think Modric has a case and an argument to be considered the greatest midfielder of all time. So if we're talking Real Madrid, then for sure he is.
I have nothing to add. That's pretty much my answer. With regards to is he the greatest Real Madrid midfielder of all time, I think the answer is yes.
I don't care about Zidane, and by the way, people will say, "Oh, but Zidane was a midfielder," and that Modric has definitely surpassed.
No, Modric
both in general football and in Real Madrid. There's no argument there.
Modric is a greater midfielder than Zidane for Real Madrid, at least.
No, and in general football also. I don't care that the fact that Zidane led France to a World Cup or whatever. And Zidane definitely had class and was brilliant. I mean, this is nothing against Zidane, but Modric is he's just the greatest midfielder in modern football history. I think there's just no argument there.
So the tricky thing with Di Stefano is it's almost like, what do you even, like, it's so hard to classify him. He's an attacking midfielder. He's a central midfielder. He's a striker. He's a winger. He's at times a defender. He's at times a wing back. So I almost feel bad for him because, like, he's, like, probably the greatest in all those positions. But I would classify him for the sake of this argument as an attacking midfielder just to... So, and With that, Modric is the greatest midfielder in club history. Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin Ridman says, anything to read into Kroos's reaction when he got subbed off?